Hello everyone, and welcome back to Sun Moon Audiobook, the channel where we share wisdom and inspiring book journeys to help you grow and develop your best self, inside and out. There is a silence that lives beneath the noise of our days, a silence like a thin line of dawn, resting on the horizon before the world fully wakes. It is fragile, tender, and easily shattered. Yet it holds within it the possibility of clarity, of breath, of renewal. Too often we let it slip away because we fill the air, the space, and our own hearts with too many tasks, too many obligations, too many voices telling us who we should be. And yet, in that quiet dawn, we glimpse a truth that our souls long for, that less can mean more, that discipline can be freedom, and that life, if tended with care, can finally feel like it belongs to us again. Greg McKeown is the guide who whispers this reminder back to us. His work does not thunder like a loud command. It flows more like a river, smoothing rough stones, shaping us gently but persistently. Greg is a teacher, a writer, and most importantly, someone who has walked through the overwhelming clutter of modern life and paused long enough to ask the question so many of us avoid. What really matters? His book is not a manual for doing more. It is an invitation to live better. His words carry the weight of lived experience, of seeing leaders, creatives, and ordinary people drown in the flood of too many choices, too many yeses, too many distractions. And he offers not an escape, but a return. At the heart of essentialism lies a paradox so simple and yet so radical, that in a world obsessed with more, the path to a life of meaning is found in less. Think of it like pruning a tree. Left unchecked, branches grow wild, stretching in every direction, draining the trunk of strength, crowding out the light. But with careful, deliberate pruning, the tree thrives, sending its energy into the branches that matter most, blossoming with life, with fruit, with shade. Or this is what essentialism asks of us: to cut away the excess so that what remains can truly flourish. One of the first truths that Greg offers is that we live under the tyranny of choice. Every day we are bombarded with options from what to buy, where to work, who to follow, what to watch, which path to take. And yet, what masquerades as freedom often becomes a trap. The flood of choices does not liberate us. It paralyzes us, overwhelms us, drowns us in indecision. Essentialism invites us to reclaim the lost art of discernment, to separate the vital few from the trivial many. Imagine your life as a canvas. You could splash it with every color you find, layering paint upon paint until the image is nothing but noise. Or you could choose your strokes with intention, leaving space, contrast, simplicity. Which canvas tells the deeper story? Which one speaks? In the same way, your days are not meant to be overstuffed collages of obligation. They are meant to carry meaning through what you choose not to place upon them. But the courage to choose is often where we falter. Saying yes feels like survival, like kindness, like safety. We say yes because we fear missing out. We fear disappointing others. We fear being seen as less capable. And yet, each yes becomes a weight, a tether pulling us in directions we never intended to go. Greg shows us that saying no is not selfish. It is an act of protection. It is guarding the sacred space where your truest work, your deepest relationships, and your most meaningful life can unfold. Think of Rosa Parks, who with one quiet but resolute no, changed the course of history. Her strength was not in adding more noise, but in standing firm in what mattered most. Sometimes the most radical act is to subtract. You, who are listening right now, might feel the tug of 100 obligations pressing on your chest. The unfinished tasks, the unanswered emails, the relentless whisper of not enough. And perhaps you wonder, how could I ever choose less when the world demands more? But here is where essentialism becomes not just an idea, but a lifeline. It teaches us that every choice we make is a trade-off. To say yes to one thing is always to say no to something else. When you accept every demand, you are quietly saying no to your own health, your own rest, your own calling. The question is not whether you will make trade-offs. The question is whether you will make them deliberately or let them be made for you. Greg paints a picture of clarity by reminding us that life is not about doing everything, but about doing the right things. Think of Steve Jobs, who was known not just for his visionary creativity, but for his ruthless focus. At Apple, he cut down product lines, eliminated distractions, and poured energy into a handful of projects that carried the company into history. His genius was not scattered across 1,000 pursuits, but concentrated into a few that mattered most. That is the essence of essentialism, shaping your energy like a laser beam, not a flickering candle. And yet, the practice is not about productivity hacks or time management tricks. It is about reclaiming the soul. Greg reminds us that being busy is not the same as being productive, and productivity is not the same as being purposeful. Many people are busy all day yet feel hollow at night. They confuse motion for progress, noise for music, quantity for quality. Essentialism asks us to pause, to breathe, to question. Does this matter? Does this align with who I am and what I am called to become? If not, why am I letting it take root in my life? I remember once walking down a crowded street, the kind where neon lights and endless advertisements scream for attention. Every sign begged to be noticed, every voice promising something vital. But amid the chaos, I noticed one small bookstore tucked into a corner, its light dim but steady, its presence quiet yet magnetic. I stepped inside, and the noise of the outside world fell away. That moment taught me that meaning is often found in what whispers, not what shouts. In life, too, it is often the quieter, simpler choices that carry the deepest resonance. Greg calls us to create space, to make room for thought, for play, for reflection. In a culture that worships hustle, this feels like rebellion. But rest is not laziness, it is strategy. Play is not waste, it is renewal. Reflection is not indulgence, it is alignment. Think of your life as a room. If it is cluttered with boxes, furniture, and things you do not need, there is no space to move, to breathe, to live. But if you clear the clutter, suddenly the same space feels expansive, inviting, alive. Essentialism is about clearing the clutter not just from your room, but from your soul. And yet, here's the tender paradox. Essentialism requires courage. Courage to disappoint others. Courage to stand apart from a culture that measures worth in busyness. Courage to trust that less is not lack, but abundance. You may feel the sting of letting go, the awkwardness of saying no, the fear of missing out. But each time you choose less, you are planting seeds for a life more aligned, more rooted, more free. This courage, like any muscle, grows with practice. There is a moment in every life when the weight of everything feels unbearable. When you lie awake at night with a mind spinning through endless obligations, replaying conversations, calculating what tomorrow demands. And in that stillness, a question surfaces. What if it didn't have to be this way? Essentialism whispers into that fragile space that life is not about cramming more in, but about letting more go. To live as an essentialist is to honor your soul by refusing to be owned by demands that are not yours to carry. Greg McKeown reminds us that one of the most powerful tools we possess is the ability to pause. A pause can feel small, almost insignificant, but it is the crack where light enters. Imagine a river rushing down a mountain, wild and chaotic, carrying with it debris and noise. If you place even one stone in the stream, the water shifts, finds a new course, slows, becomes clearer. A pause works the same way in your life. In that pause, you ask, is this essential? In that pause, you choose with intention instead of reacting with fear. The pause is the place where your power lives. Too many of us, however, live as if we are passengers in our own lives, swept along by expectations and requests. We allow the world to write our story without picking up the pen. Essentialism is about reclaiming authorship. When you learn to say no with grace, you are not shutting the door on people. You are opening the door to the truer version of yourself. Greg tells us that a clear, firm no can be more compassionate than a reluctant yes. A reluctant yes breeds resentment, burns energy, and diminishes trust. But a thoughtful no honors both you and the other person because it is honest. The world often applauds those who do it all, who appear tireless, who juggle every demand without faltering. Yet beneath the applause often lies exhaustion, emptiness, and quiet despair. Essentialism redefines success not as doing more, but as doing what matters with depth and joy. Think of Michael Jordan, whose legacy was not built on trying to excel in every sport, but on pouring himself fully into basketball. By focusing on the essential, he transformed not just his own life, but the game itself. Greatness is not scattered, it is focused. You may feel, listening to this, a kind of resistance rising in you. Perhaps the voice in your head says, "That's nice in theory, but my life is too demanding, my responsibilities too real." And that resistance is human. It is the part of you that has been trained to equate busyness with worth. But pause here. Consider the truth that your worth has never been tied to your schedule. Your humanity is not measured by how many plates you spin, but by the presence you bring to the moments that truly matter. Essentialism is not about abandoning responsibility, but about reshaping it, prioritizing it, honoring it. Greg emphasizes the importance of sleep, of rest, of renewal. In a society that idolizes hustle, sleep is often treated like a weakness, a luxury. Yet science shows and wisdom affirms that sleep is essential. It sharpens the mind, strengthens the body, and restores the soul. Without it, our decisions falter, our creativity dims, and our presence fades. To rest is to honor your future self. To sleep well is to prepare the soil for clarity. It may feel small, but choosing to rest is one of the most radical essentialist acts you can take. And then there is the practice of play. Children understand it instinctively how to lose themselves in curiosity, how to imagine worlds, how to laugh without purpose. But as adults, we exile play, labeling it frivolous, unnecessary. Greg reminds us that play is where creativity is born, where ideas are stitched together, where joy finds breath. A life without play becomes mechanical, hollow. To practice essentialism is to reintroduce play into your days, not as wasted time, but as sacred time. In those moments, you rediscover the childlike wonder that fuels your deepest work. You, listening right now, may be carrying a schedule so packed that the idea of space feels impossible. Yet imagine if, for one day, you removed even one non-essential task. Imagine the lightness that would ripple through you, the breath that would return. Essentialism is not about changing your entire life overnight. It is about making space, choice by choice, moment by moment. A tree does not blossom because it forces growth everywhere. It blossoms because it directs energy where it matters most. Greg also speaks of boundaries, those invisible lines we so often neglect. Without them, others will decide the shape of our days. With them, we reclaim our dignity. Boundaries are not walls. They are declarations of what we hold sacred. They protect our time, our relationships, our energy. Saying no to a meeting that drains you. Saying yes to an hour of silence. Saying no to shallow obligations. Saying yes to a deep conversation. These are the choices that boundaries make possible. There is a phrase Greg repeats often: less but better. Let it echo in you for a moment. Less but better. It is a mantra, a compass, a lifeline. Imagine your life not cluttered with 1,000 half-finished pursuits, but alive with a few that bring depth and joy. Imagine your relationships not stretched thin by constant distraction, but deepened by true attention. Imagine your work not scattered, but focused into something that leaves a mark. Less but better. This is the heart of essentialism. At the midpoint of this journey, I want to pause with you to acknowledge the struggle, because change is not easy. To let go of busyness can feel like letting go of identity. To say no can feel like betrayal. To embrace rest can feel like laziness. These are the whispers of an old world, a world that equates your worth with your productivity. But here, in this moment, know that you are not alone. Millions carry this same weight, and millions are learning to lay it down. Essentialism is not a path for the few, it is a path for all who are ready to reclaim their lives. And if you are hearing this now, perhaps that readiness is already stirring in you. What begins to unfold when you let go is something surprising, almost like stepping into a room you never realized was waiting for you. The air feels lighter, the walls wider, the silence kinder. Greg shows us that when we clear away the clutter, what rises is not emptiness, but clarity. Clarity about who we are, what we value, and where our energy truly belongs. This is the promise of essentialism, that a life stripped of the trivial makes space for the extraordinary. Consider the way he speaks about trade-offs. We are taught to believe we can have it all, do it all, be it all. But this is a lie that leads only to exhaustion. Every yes you utter carries with it an invisible no. Say yes to staying late at the office, and you say no to time with family. Say yes to every request in your inbox, and you say no to the deeper project that could change your future. Essentialists don't avoid trade-offs. They embrace them. They choose deliberately. They recognize that to focus on what is essential is to release what is not, with peace rather than regret. Imagine standing in front of two doors. Both cannot be walked through at once. Essentialism teaches you to choose the door that leads you toward your highest calling, not the one that simply distracts you with noise. There is also the practice of editing, a word Greg borrows from the world of writing. Great writers do not simply pour words onto the page. They cut, refine, shape, remove. They know that the power of a story is not in its length, but in its clarity. In the same way, your life is a story. It is not about cramming in as many events as possible, but about editing away the unnecessary so the essential shines through. Think of Michelangelo, who looked at a block of marble and saw within it the form of David. He did not add more stone. He chipped away until only the essential remained. Your life is the same block of marble, waiting to be revealed by your courage to remove the excess. One of the most compassionate truths in Greg's message is that saying no does not mean saying no forever. It often means, not now. It means preserving your energy for the right moment, the right cause, the right person. It is not rejection, it is alignment. Too often we give our energy away prematurely, scattering it like seeds on rocky ground where nothing can grow. Essentialism asks us to hold those seeds and plant them where the soil is rich, where our efforts will take root, where they will bear fruit that nourishes not just ourselves but those we love. And here lies a tender reflection. Sometimes the hardest no is to yourself. To the part of you that clings to old patterns, to the impulse to check one more notification, to the urge to prove your worth through busyness. Saying no to that part of you feels like loss, but it is in truth liberation. It is the release of chains that were never meant to bind you. The personal journey into essentialism also includes protecting your highest point of contribution. Greg asks us to identify not just what we can do, but what only we can do. What we are uniquely called to bring into the world. Imagine if Beethoven had spent his life answering letters instead of composing symphonies, or if Mother Teresa had diluted her mission by chasing every possible cause instead of focusing on serving the poor. Their impact came not from doing everything, but from fiercely protecting the essential. You too have a highest point of contribution, a space where your talents, passions, and values converge. To find it is to discover the fire within you that can light the world. You may be wondering how to begin, how to step into this way of living without collapsing under the weight of old habits. The beauty of essentialism is that it begins with small shifts. Choosing to pause before you say yes. Creating one pocket of time each day where nothing intrudes. Asking yourself before every commitment, is this essential? These questions act like lanterns in the dark, guiding you step by step into a new rhythm. You do not need to transform everything at once. Each small act of discernment is a seed planted in the soil of your life. With time, those seeds grow into a forest of clarity. And yes, there will be resistance from the world. People will question you. They may call you selfish, lazy, unambitious. But in time, they will also notice the lightness in your step, the peace in your presence, the depth in your work. They will see that you are no longer pulled in 1,000 directions, but anchored in a few that truly matter. And perhaps they too will feel the pull toward essentialism. Your choice becomes not just personal liberation, but an act of quiet leadership. At this moment, let me turn to you directly again. You who are listening right now, perhaps weary from the constant grind, perhaps carrying burdens you never chose, perhaps secretly yearning for a simpler, truer way of living. You are allowed to want less. You are allowed to carve space for what matters. You are allowed to disappoint others if it means not disappointing your own soul. The path of essentialism is not easy, but it is yours to walk. And in walking it, you reclaim the most precious gift, your life as it was meant to be lived. When you begin to live with less but better, something almost miraculous happens. Life slows down enough for you to notice it again. The sunrise no longer feels like background scenery. You rush past on the way to somewhere else, it becomes a gift. A quiet reminder that beginnings are possible every day. The conversation with a friend no longer feels like a box to check, but becomes a moment of laughter, of presence, of belonging. Work ceases to be a frantic sprint from one meeting to another, and instead transforms into a space where your deepest energy can pour into what truly matters. Essentialism is not about stripping life bare. It is about giving life back its meaning. Greg also speaks of the power of routine, of designing your days so that essential choices become natural instead of forced. When you shape routines that align with what is essential, you save yourself from the constant drain of decision fatigue. Think of it like setting the stage for your best self to show up. A morning routine that includes quiet reflection, exercise, or reading can set the tone for the entire day. Protecting one block of uninterrupted time for deep work can become the soil where your greatest contributions grow. These routines are not cages. They are the frameworks that free you to focus on what matters. And yet, even as you build these practices, essentialism requires gentleness. There will be days you stumble, days you say yes when you meant no, days the noise swallows your clarity. This is not failure. This is part of the path. Essentialism is not perfectionism. It is the willingness to return again and again to the question, what is essential now? Each return is an act of courage. Each recalibration a reminder that your life is still yours to shape. There is beauty in the way Greg reframes success. So often we imagine success as a mountain peak, something achieved by climbing higher, pushing harder, doing more. But in essentialism, success is not the peak. It is the path. It is the daily practice of choosing the vital few, of saying no to the trivial many, of walking with clarity. Success is not someday. It is today in the deliberate way you live. One of the most liberating insights is that essentialism is not about external validation, but about internal alignment. When you stop living for the applause, you begin to hear the quieter music of your own soul. You realize that meaning is not found in being everything to everyone, but in being deeply true to yourself. In that truth, life becomes lighter, freer, more alive. There will be moments of fear. The fear of letting people down. The fear of missing opportunities. The fear of stepping off the treadmill of busyness. But Greg reminds us that every meaningful life is shaped not by fear, but by focus. Think of J.K. Rowling, who before becoming one of the most beloved authors in the world, carved out essential space in a cafe to write, even as her life was filled with struggles. She did not try to do it all. She focused on what mattered most. Her story reminds us that greatness is not born from scattering yourself, but from concentrating your energy on the essential. And perhaps most poignantly, essentialism gives us back permission to live with joy. Joy in simplicity, joy in presence, joy in less. We are not meant to be machines grinding endlessly for output. We are human beings, meant to savor, to create, to rest, to love. Essentialism is a call to reclaim that humanity, to resist the culture of endless busyness, to choose a life that breathes. So if you find yourself weary, know this: the path of less but better is always open. It is not too late to begin. You do not need to overhaul everything. You need only begin with one choice, one no, one pause, one step toward what matters most. And with each step, You reclaim the life that is quietly waiting for you beneath the noise. And so, the practice deepens, not as a strategy you keep on paper, but as a way of being that reshapes how you move through the world. Essentialism is not only about removing, it is about noticing, paying attention to what truly lights you up, to the small sparks that reveal where your energy belongs. When you give yourself permission to notice, you begin to see that much of what clutters your life never belonged to you in the first place. The extra commitments, the constant multitasking, the borrowed expectations, they are like ill-fitting clothes you've been wearing because you thought you had to. To step into essentialism is to finally undress from them, to put on what feels like your own skin again. Greg reminds us that essentialists live by design, not by default. To live by default is to wake up and immediately react, to answer every ping, to let your calendar dictate your soul. To live by design is to pause long enough to set intention, to create boundaries, to let your days reflect your deepest priorities. Design is not control. It is care. It is shaping your life as an artist shapes clay, not rigidly, but with vision, patience, and attention. And here, the metaphor of the gardener comes alive again. Imagine tending a garden where weeds grow wild if left unchecked. Without intention, they take over, choking the flowers, draining the soil. But when you tend with care, pruning, watering, choosing where to plant, the garden thrives. Your life is this garden. Essentialism is the pruning. Essentialism is the act of pulling the weeds so your flowers can breathe. This path also demands that you embrace presence. It is not enough to say no to the trivial. You must also say yes to the moment before you. When you are with someone you love, be with them fully. When you are working on what matters, let yourself sink deeply into it without scattering your attention. Presence is the proof of essentialism lived out. For what is the point of clearing your calendar if your mind is still fractured by distraction? Presence is the fruit of essentialism, the gift you give not only to yourself, but to everyone you touch. Greg offers a phrase that lingers like a gentle echo. Protect the asset. The asset is you, your body, your mind, your heart. Too often we sacrifice ourselves on the altar of obligation, forgetting that if the asset is depleted, everything else collapses. Protecting the asset means prioritizing rest, nourishment, movement, silence. It means treating yourself not as a machine, but as a living being with limits, with needs, with worth. When you protect the asset, you honor the truth that you are the foundation of all you hope to build. And then comes the freedom that grows out of all this. The freedom to pursue depth over distraction, meaning over noise, being over doing. Imagine a life where your days are not defined by how many tasks you complete, but by how aligned they feel with your true self. Imagine measuring success not by the volume of output, but by the richness of presence. This is not a dream. It is the reality essentialism offers when you dare to choose less but better. So, as this journey begins to close, let me leave you with a quiet invitation. Begin with one choice today. Say no to something that does not serve you. Say yes to rest, to reflection, to play. Protect your asset. Prune your garden. Choose your star. And as you take these small steps, watch how your life shifts from scattered to focused, from heavy to light, from cluttered to clear. Less but better. Let this mantra stay with you. Whisper it when you feel the pull of too many demands. Repeat it when you fear saying no. Hold it close when the world tells you that more is always better. Less but better. It is your anchor, your compass, your freedom. And finally, imagine a ripple on still water. One small drop, one small choice, creating circles that expand outward, touching everything around it. That is what your essential choices will do. They will ripple through your life, through your work, through your relationships. They will change not just your days, but the days of those who walk beside you, all from the disciplined pursuit of less. If this message has touched you, I warmly invite you to share it. Like this reflection if it resonated with you. Leave a comment with your own thoughts or experiences, and subscribe so we can continue walking together on this journey of clarity and renewal. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And by engaging, you may become the ripple that inspires someone else to choose less but better, and in doing so, to finally live free.